Compared to typical metal frame phones, the Pro Eye's phone has a groove surrounding the entire frame. This adds additional surface area for your fingers to grab onto, and we love the feel and visual details it provides. Compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max and Pixel 6 Pro, the Xperia Pro Eye is unquestionably the most safe smartphone to hold in your hand. With its narrow 72mm width, it's also the lightest, weighing 201 g as opposed to 240 g for the iPhone and 210 grams for the Pixel 6 Pro, and the easiest to hold. The focal point of the phone is the centered camera surround. With tiered secondary cameras, an ultra-wide camera above, and a telephoto portrait camera below, the primary camera sticks out the most. Camera underneath. Compared to the original Xperia Pro, the matte glass back feels far more luxurious, and its satin surface is evocative of the best products from Samsung and Apple. On the right side are the camera key, combo shortcut key, and scanner power button. The Xperia Pro's camera key is unlike any other phone we've seen. Firstly, its size is much different from the small protrusion that appears on the Xperia 1.3 and Xperia 5.3. It has a subtle crisscross ridged pattern as part of its texture. This facilitates a bumbling digit to verify. It's also rather spongy, which is an odd choice. It doesn't have the pleasing half-press resistance that we would have liked, even though it is two-stage when pressed, half-pressed to concentrate press all the way to capture. Flagship cell phones from Sony, such as the primary target market for the Sony Xperia 1.3 has always been enthusiasts of photography. Sony remained steadfast, while Apple, Google, and Huawei enhanced shadows and developed night modes that turned evenings into mornings. A striking silhouette will result from using a Sony phone to take a backlit photo. It will appear to be nighttime if you shot at midnight. The purest kind of photo processing has split fans of smartphones into two groups, Sony fans and everyone else fans. As a result, social media users who support Sony are among the most vociferous and passionate in their defense of the Japanese tech brand against the digital abyss. This was the environment in which the Xperia Pro Eye was conceived. As Sony has been releasing a lot of camera apps that over the past few years have mimicked its film and small camera lines, beginning with the Xperia 1, the Pro Eye is the first to have hardware that has been directly derived from Sony's well-liked RX 100 range with a 1.0 type sensor. Although the Xperia Pro Eye came to be associated with being 1-inch, the 1.0 type sensor falls short. Rather, it makes use of 12 megapixels, or a fraction of the 1-inch sensor. The Sony Xperia Pro Extra LED is available on Amazon for use $998. Therefore, even though the Xperia Pro Eye has a large sensor by smartphone standards, its dimensions are comparable to those of the Xiaomi Mi, with the Galaxy S21 Ultras matching the bigger 11 Ultra sensor. Who then, in their right mind, would spend more for a smartphone whose hardware wasn't innovative? Three categories of people were taken into account: those who aren't in a monogamous relationship with Apple, photographic purists, and admirers of Sony. The all things considered, the Sony Xperia Pro Eye is a good phone. Its quality glass and metal design, along with its welcoming photography-focused elements like the shutter release and textured frame, make it a distinctly Sony flagship design. Its screen is vivid and vibrant as well, if a tad dull in bright light. The Xperia Pro Eye has very little lacking, but the feature that comes to mind the most is wireless charging. Other than flagship power, 512GB storage, support for SD cards, and lightning-fast 5G connection rates, Sony's user interface is dependable and just slightly different from standard Android. That being stated, your preference for image processing will largely determine whether or not you should purchase this pricey camera phone. You can choose between a contemporary point-and-shoot camera or the best in Sony-style manual photo and video programs and classic picture processing. In the US, the Sony Xperia Pro Eye costs £17.99, while in the UK, it costs £15.99. Although its availability in Australia has not been verified, it can be imported for about $2,600. It is the second phone in Sony's Pro series and the first with a new camera technology, having been released in December 2021. The phone comes with 512 gigabytes of storage and is exclusively available in black. This means that the 512 gigabyte iPhone 13 Pro Max costs $200 less than the $400 or $200 that the Xperia Pro I costs. One of Sony's phones is the Xperia Pro I, all the way through. It has the towering build that has become accustomed to us since the release of the first Xperia 1 3 years ago. A narrow impression is created by the stretched 21:9 display and the lack of notch understanding. Blasted metal makes up the phone's frame, which is sandwiched between two panes of glass, with Gorilla Glass Victus on the front and a substantial chamfer around the front and rear, as well as Gorilla Glass 6 on the rear. The Xperia Pro I's IP68 certification adds to its water resistance, which sets it apart from the Pro. Additionally, compared to most metal-framed phones, Sony designed the Xperia Pro I simpler to hold. The Pro I frame has a banded groove surrounding it completely. This provides additional surface for your fingers to hold onto, and we like the added tactile and visual detail it provides. Compared to the iPhone 13 Pro Max and Pixel 6 Pro, the Xperia Pro I is undeniable the most secure smartphone to hold in your palm. Due to its thin 72mm width, it's also the easiest to hold, and at 201G, it weighs nearly as little as the iPhones, which weigh 240, and the 210-gram Pixel 6 Pro. The focal point of the phone is the centered camera surround, with tiered secondary cameras, an ultra-wide camera above, and a telephoto portrait camera below. The primary camera is the one that sticks out the most. Compared to the original Xperia Pro, the crazy glass back feels far more luxurious, and its slick surface is evocative of the best products from Samsung and Apple. On the right side are the camera key, combo shortcut key, and scanner power button. The Xperia Pro I's camera key is unlike any other phone we've seen. Firstly, it is big compared to the small nub that the Xperia 1 III and Xperia 5 III discreetly protrude. It has a texture as well, a delicate crisscrossed ridge design. This facilitates identification even with clumsy fingers. It's also rather spongy, which is an odd choice. It has two stages when pressed, half pressed to focus press, and fully pressed to capture, although it lacks the desirable half press resistance. The primary focus of Sony's flagship smartphones, such as the Sony Xperia 1 III, has always been photography aficionados. Sony was standing by its principles while Apple, Google, and Huawei enhanced shadows and introduced night settings that made evenings appear like mornings. If you're utilizing Sony phone in backlit picture, it will result in a striking silhouette. It will appear to be nighttime if you shot at midnight. The purest kind of photo processing has split fans of smartphones into two groups, those who support Sony and those who support everyone else. As a result, social media users who support Sony are among the most vociferous and passionate in their defense of the Japanese tech brand against the digital abyss. This was the environment in which the Xperia Pro I was conceived. Although Sony has been releasing camera apps that mimic its film and compact camera lines for a few years now. Beginning with the Xperia 1, the Pro I is the first to come with hardware that is directly derived from the company's well-liked RX 100 line, which has a 1-point sensor of the O type. Although this came to be associated with the Xperia Pro I being 1 inch, the 1.0 type sensor falls short. Rather, it makes use of 12 megapixels, or a part of the 1-inch sensor. The Sony Xperia Pro IH OLED is available on Amazon for use $998. The Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra and the Galaxy S21 Ultras also have larger sensors than the Xperia Pro I. Thus, even though it has a huge sensor by smartphone standards, its size is nothing new. Who then? Would anyone in their right mind shell out more money for a smartphone whose hardware wasn't breaking any new ground? Three categories of people were taken into account: those who aren't in a monogamous relationship with Apple, photographic purists, and admirers of Sony. The all things considered, the Sony Xperia Pro I is a good phone. Its quality glass and metal design, along with its welcoming photography-focused elements like the shutter release and textured frame, make it a distinctly Sony flagship design. Its screen is vivid and vibrant as well, if a tad dull in bright light. Regarding Sony's user interface, there are only a few degrees deviation from vanilla Android. There isn't much that the Xperia Pro I lacks with flagship power, 512GB storage, compatibility for SD cards, and fast 5G data rates. Wireless charging is the primary feature that comes to mind. Having said that, if you should purchase this pricey camera, your phone will benefit the most. Thanks for watching.